All right, hello. This is, we're going to do the bound pocket with a flap today, which is the finished look would be like this. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
And you see, you have the two lips, and then the flap is pushed in between, and then you have a full lining on the inside. And you see the back has a facing, lower part is lining, you know, your seams and your darts, and they slightly trimmed to, you know, the dart is cut open to prevent bog and too much fullness. This seam can be graded to keep it nice and flat, and so it has that nice little tailored look. Okay, so the preparation for this is, you know, like we did here, the darts, the front seam, and pressing it open. Let's see this one. As long as you trim it down to a 1/4, but don't trim, you know, don't go too small. In here it's okay because, but usually trimming something too much doesn't necessarily help anything. You know, so this is actually a little bit less than what I wanted, but it's okay. Now, so here are the pieces. This is your welt, this is the flap, and then this is the inside pouch for the lining. And it's very important that you know which one goes where, because one of them is shorter than the other. So you have to, again, you have to refer to your notches. So this one, the slightly bigger one, goes with this piece. So, okay, right side's touching. So this is going to be, the pattern asks you to do a 3/8 of a seam, not a 1/2 inch. In this jacket, we're dealing with 3/8, 1/2, and 1/4 seams. So they are slightly different for different areas. If you have any problem, look at your pattern pieces, because they will, you know, your little notches on the ends also tell you. So at some point I want to sew this up. And then when you press it, don't press it open, just press it in the direction of the fabric to avoid bog. Then this part ends up on the lower part of the welt. Okay, so we put this aside. Now, the placement of your pocket is, according to your pattern, is what happened to, I'm missing one of my, okay. Here's the dart, and according to the pattern, you want to bring the placement line of the pocket to the front piece, because you don't, you know, this is not going to help you with putting your welt on. So just take a shock that you can remove. It's 8 1/4 up, so 8 1/4, and then just kind of walk it over. It's basically the placement line. The start of the pocket is usually about 2 inches below your waistline. That's even when we made the welt pocket for the pants, it's 2 inches. That's general placement, unless you want to do something different, but that's standard. Now, the beginning of the pocket is a 1/2 inch before the ditch of the dart, the front dart, okay? So it looks kind of like that. Now, the reason we did the flap ahead of time Also, the part with the interfacing, we're going to use as the outside because it looks nicer. You know, fundamentally, they always say that the interfacing part is the under part. But in most cases, when you look at it, it don't look as nice, you know, because you seam, your edges come through. This way you have it nice and flat. In the curves, you're supposed to notch, and she did. And then you can also, in the corners, grate the corners a little bit for, like right there. Okay, so we're going to use that as our outer part. Now, every jacket is usually different, you know, because you're using different fabrics, so your measurements will change. So just because your pattern says this, it might not be true for whatever fabric you have. So we make the flap ahead of time to find out the measurement, because you really have, see, this is 5 5/8, where the opening here is 5 1/2. So there is an 1/8 of an inch play, which is okay. That's not too much. You can get it in there really nice and tight. But what I will do is let me use this here. It's a little, when I follow my lines, is this exactly in the middle? Yeah, you did good. You want to make sure that this is nicely centered. So when you see it's, oops, is that visible? Maybe not. Let me try this one. You gotta watch your markers, because if you make these lines too heavy, then they become a different measurement. So I just wanted to make them a little bit more visible. The welt itself is a 1/2 inch. And again, it comes in at 1 inch, and see, this is perfect. Now, because this is slightly bigger, see, you can take your, you know, but this is really not too much by the time we, so, but what I will do is, you see, this line in itself is almost 1/16 of an inch. So you have to make a decision when you sew it. Am I going to be on the inside, in the middle, or on the outside? So because of the weight of the fabric and this being a little bit bigger, I'm going to stay on the outer edge. So in here, so you have to make choices like that. Within a 1/2 inch of the corners, I'm going to change my stitch length to a number 1 stitch. In the middle parts, we use regular stitch. Okay? Now that's just like we did with the pen. So a lot of these things are already familiar to you. So we don't have to worry. You just, in this way, you just have to make sure it's centered, it's even, it's cut on the bias. Okay? So right now, when I place this, I'm going to, this is goes with the upper line. So the welt is below. It's not in the middle, because the pocket has to be 2 inches below. So you cannot. So you take the upper line and line it up. You can make yourself a little sketch and just X where you want to be. Okay, I'm going to just walk this now, pin and then I find my placement line and just pin it. Another thing that I need to point out to you is I see you guys always sewing, you know, you pin your seams and then you sew over the pins. It's very bad. You cannot, you damage the machines. This feed dog, those little teeth, they get damaged. Also, when you sew over pins, if you come real close with your needle, it breaks the thread, it cuts the thread. So then your seams come loose and you wonder what happened here. So best practice is when you get close to the pins, take them out. You don't have to win a race. You can take, you know, enough time to do this. So this is now in place and ready to go. Okay, I'm going to do these two things and put this aside, and I'm going to come to your machine. You set it up, check the, did you check the, oh, okay, all right. So, now I haven't shown you this machine. Is it safe? You know, every machine is different. Does this come on by itself or? No. Okay, how are you with light?
Me.
You got enough light?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, so this is going to be 3/8, which is right between the 1 and the 4. I made a little sketch up there. So I line it up right in front of the 4, 2.5 stitch with a little back stitch, and oh, okay, that's not too bad. I don't like the ones that are where they just take off, you know. And then when you come over here, back stitch and stop. Always bring your take-up level all the way up, and then when you push your knee, see, it's separate and it's ready to go for the next seam. You don't have to worry about losing the thread or anything. So I just want this to be pressed like this, okay? All right, now we're going to place the front piece. Make sure your thread is underneath, and keep an eye on these little seams so that they stay open. I'm going to start in the center. Everybody can see? Yeah. Okay. Now you can write down whatever you want. Now, because, let me see, can I have a screwdriver, please? This foot doesn't feel right. You've got to make sure that these feet are all the way up. Is this all the way up? It was kind of dancing. Okay. All right. Okay, now when I get to that 1/2 inch mark, I'm going to change to a number 1 stitch, and I'm going to use my hand wheel . Now when you pivot corners, you know that you keep the needle down to get a good corner. And I'm staying kind of on the outer edge of that line. Let me see, one more stitch. Okay, look. Back to 2.5. That foot don't know, that foot is kind of funny.